Okay.
Hey guys, so right now I'm with the entertainer director, Spencer. We just finished our wonderful interview with Jess. So I believe you're actually her boss, correct?
That is technically correct. So she serves the front of the house of the guests, and I'll take care of everything to make sure she has everything she needs to be successful in the front. So I'll be taking care of things in the back.
So what do you do in the back exactly?
So it's a mix of a lot of things. The entertainment director position is still pretty new with Carnival. So not only do I keep the front of the house guests with our cruise director and our fun squad and keep them all aligned, I'm also in charge of all the musicians on board, the dancers and singers, so the whole entertainment department kind of comes under my watch now.
Yeah. How many different departments? So that's quite a lot of people, about 20, 30, maybe more people that you have to kind of supervise?
Here on this ship, I think we're a little bit closer to 61. We're in a unique environment where we have a larger dance team of 12 singers and dancers, as well as we have a full show band on top of our normal performers. So that adding those extra people puts me right at about 60 in and out, plus fly-on comedians, so the number is always changing.
You say it's fairly new. How new exactly is it?
So this rolled out with Carnival approximately a year and a half or so ago, and we are one ship away from having a full fleet rollout, so we have one more ship that needs an entertainment director, and we'll be rip-roaring with a full fleet.
So why is this new position here now exactly?
Typically what was happening, we were looking at our review scores and passenger feedback, and what was happening is our cruise director and other front-of-house facing positions spent a lot of time in the back of house just doing things related to maritime law or a lot of admin work, and it's really taken away from the guest experience. So what we try to do is create a position that would take care of all those things for our team members, and so they can spend more time with the guests. So I always like to say it's not really, I don't want to say it's not a director position, but I sort of play that ultimate support role for each and every one of those team members.
Nice. So are you ship specific for the entertainment directors, like a lot of the cruise directors are ship specific, or are you able to kind of bounce around to different ships?
At the moment I'm bouncing around. I've done, I think, 6 ships in the past 6 weeks. So they're getting me a little taste of everything. I get to see every different class of ship. I get to see the different demographics for wherever our home port might be. And of course working with a lot of team members. But eventually I'll be heading out to one ship and staying there for the main majority of my contract. But
out of the ones that you kind of bounce around with, do you have one that you kind of like a little bit more than any of the others?
You know, I'm still pretty new to the entire rollout process, so it's been great just to see what I might like and what I might not like as I try to work with my team shoreside to pick that kind of position. So there's some things I like on everyone, there's some things I would like to change on some things, so it's hard to say just yet.
What are some of the pros and cons of your position on the ship?
It's nice that, of course, having a huge team around me and having everyone that's so talented, and they're so uniquely talented, whether I need guidance on how to fix a technical issue in the theater, or maybe I want to teach a guest how to do a cha-cha dance. I have resources everywhere with such unique talents and skill sets that I can pull from their knowledge and make the best product possible for our guests.
What does it take to become an entertainment director? As we saw with Jess, it took a lot of high volume energy, but since you're back of house, do you need a lot more mathematical skills, or?
It's a good mix of having that entertainment background as well as that sort of business etiquette side of things. So I actually started off on the entertainment side as well, much like Jess, where I worked in television and radio. From there, on the side I had my own DJ business, so I turned that into becoming an onboard DJ. Slowly working my way up into the entertainment department that way. I became second in command, and then actually went back to shoreside to work for another company in a more business corporate style environment, just to make myself a little more well-rounded. So the combination of everything I've done so far, I think, snowballed me to where I am today, where you can, if need be, jump in the front of the house and be with our guests, but at the same time, if we have a technical issue come up, I like to think I can have some support in that. So,
is there any room for advancement, or are you at kind of like the climax of this opportunity for this?
When it comes with the onboard opportunities, the entertainment director is typically the highest position you go. If you want to become a little more well-rounded and look at a bigger picture, the next step for onboard entertainment could be working more with the guest services team, possibly becoming a hotel director, which would be much, much more down the line because entertainment is so niche specific, especially on a ship. If you were to go landside, there's a lot of opportunities there where you could work sort of being that support role for multiple entertainment directors for certain classes of ships. Working your way up there, you could eventually be director, vice president, what could happen. But
so take us through a typical day from a port day as well as a sea day as your job.
A good way to start would be with I guess we could start at the very beginning of the cruise, what we call our turnaround day, where we're taking off 3,500 passengers, but also just a few hours later, just bringing everybody on. So I spend the morning with the cruise director and the entertainment staff, just making sure we have everything we need to get the guests off. I'm sort of that last face they see to say farewell alongside the cruise director, because of course she's that recognizable face, but I like to help expedite the process as well. From there, we have a little bit time to get off in port, or what I like to do is either catch up on sleep or catch up on some emails. There's always some very timely emails that come in every day where we have to just stay in compliance with a lot of things, as well as address anything that's hot in those few hours before we start loading on guests. As the guests start to come aboard, we start to turn our attention to getting them ready for the safety drill. So I serve as the first in charge of two of the muster stations on board.
Oh, nice.
So we have to make sure those are rip roaring ready to go. We do our safety drills. From there, it's a little bit of maintenance for me where I see our welcome aboard parties and all the little activities going on throughout the ships. I try to make sure they're up to par with our company standards. And from there, we head in the back, do a little administration work. Again, working on those emails, working with my shoreside partners to make sure everybody's doing everything they need to be successful.
And that's just usually on a sea day. What about port days? Do you have a little bit more time to kind of relax and unwind, or are you still doing a lot of paperwork?
Port days are typically kind of our catch-up days, I like to say. So we'll spend the morning doing what we need to get, just sort of check our boxes, make sure we have everything we need. Typically on a port day is when I'll be working on the next voyage. So by the time the current voyage we're on now sets sail, I'm already thinking 1 or 2 voyages ahead of any obstacles we need to overcome, whether a special group is coming in, or maybe I have a special entertainer that needs something a little more unique for his performance. I'm working on those voyages in advance and being a little more proactive so we don't have to be reactive and wait till they come and say, oh, maybe we weren't ready for that. So it's always about being proactive.
When you say we, who do you mean exactly?
It's a mix of everyone. So for example, let's say we have a magician coming on board that uses pyrotechnics in his shows. Not only I have to make sure that he has everything he needs to prepare for that, but let's say our technical team, they have to make sure they have the appropriate pyrotechnical materials to come on board. Any special lighting effects, I work with my lighting designer to make sure we have all the proper cues and it hits our time code and our software properly. So it's just connecting with all the right departments to make sure, again, it's not so much directing, it's just supporting each of my team members, making sure they have everything they need to be successful.
Is it a pretty stressful role? Because every time I've met you, you seem very relaxed, but it sounds like it kind of is adding up and adding up.
It can add up very quickly. The way I see it, if you do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life. And my personal motto is to always be the difference in somebody's day, whether that's me working in the back to make sure a fantastic show is put on for our guests, or it's just a simple trivia game, for example. It's just the little things. If I'm in any way, shape, or form being that sort of resource to make an impactful moment on somebody's life, because for a cruise vacation, these are the kind of things that people are going to remember forever.
Oh, yeah.
So I like just being in that role, or being that person that can help in any way, shape, or form. Even if it's, for example, maybe Jess that makes the final impact, I know my role is felt in some way, shape, or form.
When you do have, let's say, a stressful day, how do you kind of like unwind?
Sure. That's always been one difficult thing for a lot of crew members, because you live where you work. And a lot of the time it's just trying to find that one little thing that makes you feel, I guess you could say, normal. So it's anything from just kicking back and watching a movie, or if we're in a little more urban port, just walking around and grabbing a coffee and walking the streets and people watching. It's just a good way to take your mind off things and reset. Or I'm a big shopper too. I just like to go shopping and pack way too much stuff up at the end of a contract.
I know what you mean. We had to bring on about 6 suitcases.
Yeah!
Most of them weren't ours.
That's good.
Camera equipment and whatnot.
Equipment.
So when you're on a port, what do you typically do? Do you like to do just kind of touristy stuff, or just kind of relax? Because I'm assuming you visited these ports quite often now.
It's nice that we get to see all these ports multiple times, so you get to know what you like and what you don't like, versus where you're maybe go to a unique port once in your life, you try and do everything all at once, and the experience may be cut short. So it all depends on what may be presented that day. The ship here and our HR team does a great job preparing ideas for us to do. For example, in a certain port, maybe they'll take us all out to a beach with an all-expense-paid buffet, for example.
That's pretty great.
Yeah. Or other times, it's a little more relaxed, do your own thing, so we can sit around, maybe just catch up with family members, take in some free Wi-Fi, or grab a nice lunch just off the ship, and just so you're maybe just far away so you don't have to see the ship. And just, like I said, reset those batteries a little bit.
Jess is also talking about a lot of different crew events specifically. So can you kind of go more about some of the crew events?
So if you've ever been on a cruise ship, you see we have gyms and bars and nightclubs and all this stuff. And just about everything that a guest area has, our crew areas have as well. So it's really well hidden. So we have our own crew bars. We have several different dining options for our crew members. And on top of that, we also have our own crew activities that's run through the Crew Training Center and our Human Resources team. So they'll give us anything. And the challenge is, versus working with one main demographic with our passengers, which is typically Americans, we're working with demographics from 59 different countries. So we always have to change up our activities for our crew to make sure it's appealing to them. So we'll do themed food nights, or we'll do various crew parties with different international themes to them. Recently we just did a Bollywood themed one.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So it's always kind of and it's a great way to get the crew involved by, it's sort of a by crew, for crew feel. So again, that Bollywood party, we brought in a Bollywood DJ. I think he was a galley steward or something to that matter, but he knew the music very well, and he was able to pull in the right crowd to get the job done. It's really
so it
cool.
seems like there's a lot of cultural diversity usually with the crew, as you can kind of see it from like Philippines, Southeast Asia. How easy does everyone get along? Is there like a language barrier, or is there?
Typically, there's not much of a language barrier because our crew members are required to pass a certain English proficiency test before they come aboard. Thankfully for me, I was already fluent, so I don't have to worry too much about that. But friendliness is something that's never short around here. It's sort of a horrible pun, but I always say on board we're all in the same boat. And we're all, hundreds if not thousands of miles away from our families. So we all get pretty tight-knit pretty quickly. And when you're working anywhere between 8 to 14 hours a day with these people, it's pretty hard to hold grudges.
How do you like a lot of different cultures and different foods that you've had here? Because I'm sure you've kind of dipped in with a lot of these different crew events.
Absolutely.
What was your favorite culture that you were kind of experienced with a lot of crew members?
Each one of them has been incredibly unique, and I've eaten and experienced things that I can't even pronounce, which is always pretty cool. But recently we had, on a previous ship I was just visiting, an Indian street food party, where it was just things you would see on like the streets of Mumbai, and it was incredibly cool. It was totally authentic, because we have so many of our galley staff that are from that area, so everything you're tasting is not just, it's not faked, it's 100% authentic, so you're getting exactly what you might get out there. So it was just really cool, and we probably had 800 crew members show up over the course of the night. It was incredible.
I wish Carnival had a lot more stuff like that. I know they do offer, they have one of the Indian restaurants on the Magic that we're on that I was only able to go to at one time because it's a certain time limit. I wish they had almost like a culture night where they had like a world type of meal.
It's nice to think about. It's just a matter of what the passengers are looking for. For those that are a little more well-traveled, I'm assuming like yourself, can
second cruise ship.
Well, you play it off well.
Well, thank you. I try.
It's always a challenge for a lot of people to try new things, and of course they like to revert to what they're comfortable to. So it's a matter of gauging our guests and seeing who really wants to try these new things. And I think that's something that might be able to happen in the future. I think it would be really successful.
I think that'd be really great to have too.
Yeah.
How much leeway do you have with controlling different things? Do you have to run it through Carnival Corporate, or are you able to kind of do some of your own events here?
It's nice that Carnival's been around so long. They've seen so many successes and so many failures with some of their programming. There's a huge list, we call them sort of our recipes of sorts, of everything that we need to have a successful event, broken down just piece by piece by piece. A little thing like a trivia or a game show for 500 guests, there's typically a pretty formulaic script of when and how to host the event. There's a little room for freedom of exactly where we want to put some certain things. For example, musician sets are a little more open to interpretation based on the demographic of your crowd and what kind of musical stylings you might have. But it's a nice combination of having great support from our shoreside staff of knowing exactly when and where to put things for the most success. At the same time, we have the ability to improv a little bit for anything that might occur. I don't want to say in an emergency case, but maybe oh no, if some lights are out in the theater, we need to reprogram accordingly. So it's a nice mix of having great support on the side, as well as a little improvisation for us on board.
Do you prefer working on smaller ships like the Triumph or larger ships?
That's a good challenge within itself. It's a good question within itself, because with our smaller ships, typically come longer itineraries with less guests, so you spend a lot more time getting to know the guests, and you can tune your programming to fit them a little bit better. Whereas the bigger ships, you tend to have the bigger parties, a little more energy and excitement. The shorter cruises, everyone's here to have a great time and make the most of every single day. So it's a great mix of the two. And I've been lucky to work on both of them. I think I would have to choose the smaller ships for now, just because I love the longer cruises and typically get to go to a few more intricate ports. But like I said, each one of them totally have their ups and downs.
Does the amount of work that you have for larger ships and smaller ships kind of vary, or is it usually about the same amount?
It's very itinerary specific. So on our port days, when everyone's off the ship, obviously our programming goes down. So for those ships that they're more than a week long and there's maybe 8 or 9 ports involved, typically it's not less work for me, it's just structured a little easier for my team so they don't have to work as long. Whereas if there's a lot of sea days involved, maybe we're crossing the Atlantic Ocean where there's 6 or 7 sea days in a row nonstop, we're flying at the seat of our pants with pretty much nonstop entertainment.
What's your favorite port that you visited so far?
I was lucky enough when I was younger and just getting started on ships where I got to do a full contract in New Zealand, and it was by far the greatest experience of my life. It's just so diverse in every port you go to. There's 6 ports where one day you're in a major city like Auckland. There's a nice day for just a beach day in a little area called Tauranga. You do the sort of Lord of the Rings style, beautiful scenic cruising, Hobbiton, all that, in Fiordland National Park. So it's just that perfect combination of everything.
I've actually been to New Zealand once before. That was
pretty good, isn't it? You said Hobbiton, so you must be familiar.
I think the biggest thing there was the smell. The air just smelled so clean. It's weird.
It's a lot like Alaska too, but two very different worlds, but they're both incredibly wonderful.
A lot more sheep.
A lot more sheep. And the people there make it as well too. Very good people.
Does it get lonely because you're bouncing around?
So does it get lonely because you're kind of bouncing around from ship to ship, or is it pretty easy to kind of mingle with more staff members, or do you miss some?
Going back to the phrase of we're all kind of in the same boat, for those of us that do travel around a little bit more than others, particularly in the entertainment department, we all get that coming such a long way for either a short or a long time, or you bounce around a lot. People tend to draw pretty quickly to the entertainment staff because we are sort of those social hosts in a lot of ways. So people always like to come in and get to know us. So there's never really a challenge to meet a lot of people, but it is nice to have some regularity when you're on a ship for a longer time as well. So on this ship in particular, in the past I've been on a ship for a week or a couple days or maybe 2 weeks at a time, and right now I'm here for 8 weeks, so it's really nice to kind of just set my feet for a little while, get some roots going, and really get to know my team.
So I've read a couple different cruise ship books before, and I've heard about like cliques. Are there actually cliques a part of like smaller ships versus larger ships, or what's crew life kind of like with that?
There's certainly cliques that do exist. We call them the paisanos, where typically those of the same ethnicity or maybe even just the same position all tend to hang out together. It's not very ship or ship size specific, because I always say when you're in a unique or uncomfortable situation, you just tend to fall back into something that you're more comfortable with, whether it be, for example, we were talking about earlier, food, or just that group of friends that you have some common ground with already. So they do tend to form, and they tend to form rather quickly, but they're never really all that exclusive by any means. So one thing I've learned very quickly about the Carnival team is they're incredibly friendly and welcoming. Even if it's me walking into a group of, we'll say, housekeeping staff, they're always pretty welcoming and always want to get to know you. It's just a matter of being able to jump over that barrier and take the risk to meet somebody new.
So what are the different levels with eating? I know there's crew, staff, and then directors, or?
You're just about right. So starting off with the crew members, for our general staff, we have our crew mess, which is typically the most challenging dining area to be in, because that's where our most diverse clientele is. So being able to constantly create new meals that are both unique but also have that nice sense of home for so many different people, it's always a fun challenge to go in there and just kind of see what they're making and get a gauge for what's going on. From there, we work up to the staff mess, which is a similar kind of feel, slightly elevated, where they have like a nice coffee machine and nice teas, so a slightly elevated experience there. And then from there we get into our officers mess and seniors officer mess, where not only if we want to eat in the restaurant there where we can eat off the passenger menu, as well as some nice extra selections as well, we also have the ability to have guest access, where on a quieter night we can go into the restaurant, or if the pizza restaurant is short, we can go grab a pizza, which I do way too often, hang out in the Lido buffet. But yeah, so crew, you were just about right with crew mess, staff mess, officers mess, and seniors officer mess, which we also call the captain's table.
Which one are you able to go up to?
I can go into the seniors officers mess, since the entertainment director position is a 3-stripe position. It technically qualifies as a senior officer.
Can you go into the lower ones as well, or how does that work?
We can, whenever it's open, as you work your way up, you sort of are grandfathered into everything that was below.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm welcome to the crew mess, the staff mess. Typically, the officer and seniors officer mess is more of a sit-down, formalized atmosphere. So if I only have 10-15 minutes to chow down, I'll pop into one of those two real quick for a quick bite.
Which one do you kind of lean towards the most? Like, which one do you what's your favorite food out of all of them?
I do like going into the crew and staff mess a lot, because I do like trying so many different foods. But I do have I have a nice mix where I try to change where I go constantly. I never like to sit in the same place twice, just so I can challenge my taste buds a bit, but also then kind of just interact with different crew members on a regular basis.
We have a couple different questions coming in as well from some of our Facebook Live viewers.
Fantastic.
Any issues with the crew not getting along?
So are there any issues with some of the crew members not getting along, and how is that handled if there is ever any issues with that?
Like I said, the synergy's always been pretty good with other departments and our team members working together, but sometimes there's just issues that can't be resolved or tend to escalate a little bit quickly. So for example, one thing that commonly happens is when our team members are sharing rooms. Typically sometimes there'll be those conflicting personalities where it's just not working, much like you would see in America in a college dorm, for example. And we'd follow a similar process to that. We'd work with, we'll call it I don't want to call it the dormitory director like you would in a college, but our training and human resources team would try and mediate the issue at first, and if it's unresolvable, we'll simply move them into other cabins. Anything that escalates beyond that, anything that includes fighting or something like that, typically gets taken on by the security team, and they address the situation as they deem necessary.
Okay. Yeah. How long of a contract are you allowed to have? Is it 4 to 6 months like a cruise director, or is yours not really contract based?
Mine is also contract based. Mine usually sits right about at the 6-month mark. That is open to interpretation, so we can do 4 months if it fits ours and the corporate schedule a little bit better. But typically, everything I've seen so far sits right at about 6 months.
Since it's a fairly new position, how many contracts do they usually want to have per person fill out for their whole entire term?
That's the thing. There's no set term for these contracts. So you kind of sign a contract as sort of your fresh start no matter where you go. Even for those cruise directors and entertainment directors that have been allocated to one ship, so to speak, once you're off contract, you are fully, I guess, I don't want to say free, but open to interpretation. So you can take on the next contract, come back on, and it's sort of that new feel to it.
After you do decide to kind of retire from this position, what other positions would you like to pursue in the future?
You know, it's always interesting because I was working on ships for a good while, then I took on the corporate world thinking I've seen a nice chunk of the world, I had a great time doing it, and I thought my ship time was done, and then this job came in and I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far, and it's kind of shaken up my idea of where exactly I want to be in the next few years. I would love to continue to grow in this role, work with different classes of ships and different people just so I can round myself out a little bit better. Maybe someday work my way to shoreside where I can, as I get more comfortable in this position and know the ins and outs, work with a couple different entertainment directors as sort of that next shoreside associate that can help guide them in the right direction. So I think that's where I want to head next, but again, it's still shaping every day.
Of course.
Yeah. Awesome.
Applying for entertainment host.
So applying for the entertainment host or hostess, what would you have to do, and what are some like prerequisites to get that position?
Absolutely. What I like about the audition process here with Carnival is there's no set formula, so to speak. If you go to Carnival Entertainment on our Facebook page, they're always posting the next tryouts and auditions, and the prerequisites are always pretty open-ended. You could have a ton of microphone experience, or you could just have a great hospitality background. There's really no set formula for a successful host. But when you come to an audition, they'll throw you to the wolves, so to speak, and give you a microphone and say, I want you to host a dance party for me for all 3 people in the room, or get everyone fired up. So they're always looking for that energy and excitement. Of course, having that professional presentation background is fantastic, and a strong hospitality background is good as well, but sort of having that natural fire and energy to be able to pump up a crowd is the first thing they look for. So it's nice that, again, my degree was actually in radio broadcasting. I never really thought of being that face of a crowd when I first started, but having that natural energy got the ball rolling.
Do you have to have high school requirement, college, or a specific level of...
Typically, a high school education is the minimum.
Okay.
And then depending on what your degree may in beyond that, things like communications, again, that broadcasting sort of background is always welcoming. It's very open-ended. They like to see things like communication or some sort of hospitality, hotel management, things of that nature.
What position, if you could switch with anyone else on the ship, would you like to try out?
This is a question I've asked my team a lot because being in entertainment, it's so niche and it's so different from everybody else that works on board. And it's always an interesting challenge to think about. But I've always had a passion for bartending, and I always like that sort of mixology thing. So I think working over in our Alchemy bar, where they really focus on craft cocktails, and they do a lot more than just pour beers and sling rum and cokes all day. So it's a really fun, intricate position. But not only that, you can spend a lot of time chatting with guests and teaching them a lot more about mixology in general. So I tend to lean my way over there, I would love to give it a try as a bartender.
I would also like to work at Alchemy Bar.
Right?
It's probably where I kind of like go to the most. When I had the Cheers package, it was definitely the place for me.
Absolutely.
How many opportunities to?
How many different opportunities?
For cruise?
One more time.
Ships on the stick for cruise.
How many ships on the stick can you earn on a cruise?
How many ships on a stick can you earn? Well, after you earn your first one, we changed the name to mix it up for you, and we called it Dinghy on a Thingy.
Dinghy on a Thingy.
But there's no limit to what you can do. We always try to diversify who we give them out to, so everyone has a little something to go home with. But I think I've seen where we've given maybe 3 or 4 out in one cruise to the same couple. And either they're just really good at trivia, or they bring that natural energy and excitement to themselves, where they're getting everybody rounded up and involved with it. So
what is a ship on a stick, and how do you get it?
It was great. Before I joined Carnival, I've always heard about this ship on a stick, and I literally thought it was like a picture of a ship with on a popsicle stick. But what it is it's a trophy, and every ship has their own version of the ship on the stick, where it represents whatever ship you're on. So if we would give you a ship on the stick of Triumph, it would be a little trophy of the Carnival Triumph. If it's a bigger ship, you'll see the little minute differences, and it's really cool. You can earn them for just about anything we do with the Fun Squad and entertainment activities. If you win a game of trivia, or you were contestants on our Love and Marriage game show. Anyway, I like to say anytime you've sort of jumped out there and done something that you wouldn't normally do at home, and they're just trying to have fun, you have a good opportunity to get a ship on a stick.
Out of all the different shows that you've kind of been to before, what was your favorite show?
That's a good challenge too, because there are so many. What I love about our job in entertainment is we feed so much on our guests, and we could script something till the cows come home and try and nail it down to a T, but some of the best events we do are ones that are totally unscripted and completely different every time we do them. So that Love and Marriage game show, we have our generic questions, we know what kind of cue points we want to say funny things to, but the responses we get from our guests are 100% authentic, and you'll never see the same show twice. I've probably seen 200 Love and Marriage shows probably in the past couple years, and I go to every one because they're just always so funny. You never know what you're going to get.
Have you ever had a show where not many people kind of show up, where you had to cancel it, or has it always been very popular?
Well, that's when we just have to tune our mindset a little bit, what we're trying to do with the show, because we like to think our shows are always going to be popular, but maybe someday something even better is happening. Maybe let's take a look at a big sporting event, for example. Maybe our game show was scheduled the same night, and everyone's out watching the big sporting event. So we have to tune our ideas a little bit. So the people coming to the show, maybe they're not all that interested in sports. So we have a little more intimate experience with them, where we actually get to know them a little bit better, versus going through the motions of giving those generic questions or just those funny little cue points. You get them a little more involved, make them feel a little more comfortable and at home with you, versus trying to appease so many different people.
For new cruisers coming on the ship, what's the #1 thing they must do on the ship?
For new cruisers, I know they go to the bar typically first, and that's okay. There's no real hard and fast answer, because everyone is interested in so many different things. My advice to new cruisers is just stay out of the generic and go out there and try something new. Because what happens with first-time cruisers so many times, they'll sit on a deck chair and just sit for 5 to 7 days, whatever it might be, and they leave saying, oh, I don't feel like we did anything. But those that go out there and try something new, enter the hairy chest contest, or enter a mixology contest, or go see the shows, even if you don't think you're into Vegas style shows. Going out there and trying something new is just my ultimate recommendation. You're on vacation, you're never going to see these people again, so that's the way I approach it.
Has there ever been a time where they have to cancel a show, or what would cause something for a show to be canceled?
Sure. With Carnival, we always try to have a backup plan for anything that may occur. One of our biggest struggles with having Vegas-style shows outside a floating resort is the weather. So sometimes we can get a little bit rocky, and it comes to a point of safety where our dancers may not be able to perform their job safely. So we have the opportunity in those rocky conditions to do what we call a concert version of the show. Where all the technical elements are minimized, the dancing is very, very minimized, and becomes more of a vocal style show.
Oh, nice.
For our theater style shows that feature our Big Easy show here on board, or our Wonderful World, that are very vocally focused, it still makes for a fantastic show. Alternatively, as we're moving around, and all our tech elements can sometimes be subject to the rocking and rolling, some things might fall out of place, or we may have an emergency with our pyro system, or we have our lighting consoles may have trouble talking to our booths over there. There are technical times where we have to cancel the show just due to technical difficulty. But again, having that backup where we can just draw everything out and do what we call a concert style show is great. And alternatively to that, if it's like 50-50 where it's kind of rocky, but we can still get some things done, but we can't do this. We have 3 or 4 what I call cut points in every show where we can cut small segments out of the show that are a little more high risk or more intricate, but we can still present about 80 to 90% of our show, which is great.
Nice.
So, which audience participation show is the passenger's favorite?
Which audience participation shows is usually the passenger favorite?
The passenger favorite, as I saw it yesterday as well, is typically the hairy chest contest. It's usually run on our first sea day when everybody's outside. We have typically perfect weather, especially in this itinerary. So you have anywhere from 750 to 1,200 people in our main Lido deck at all times. So being able to get everybody riled up for something just so simple, for some big guys ripping their shirts off.
Oh yeah.
And they just eat it up. And it's, again, like that Love and Marriage show where we have our scripting and the things we're going to say, but you never know what you're going to get. So it's just fun to see every single time what somebody's going to do next.
Do you think it kind of takes people out of their comfort zone a little bit to kind of get them into the mood of, you know, I'm probably never going to see these people again unless you're the host of the show?
It does take a little coaxing for some. Others are
just boom and do it.
Others, they'll see it advertised in our fun times and they'll be there half hour before signups even start, just because they are so into it and they want to be that showstopper. But everyone is very different in how they approach the event. Sometimes they walk in and say, what is this all about? What are the rules? Do I have to keep my shirt on? Or whatever it might be. But yeah, to a lot of folks, they kind of see, that's the nice bit about having our fun times where everything is advertised well in advance, about 24 hours in advance, so they can get an idea of what they might be interested in. They have time to learn about the event. They can ask the fun squad. They can ask just about anybody, because we've seen these events all before, so we like to give them as best a description and as much information as possible so they can make the best decision for themselves.
For some of them, when we did the adult scavenger hunt on the Magic, I'm not sure if they have it on this ship.
Is it the digital scavenger hunt?
Yes, they had that one.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips and tricks for maybe being prepared for some of these scavenger hunts in the future?
That is a good question. Researching your ship is always very important. I know on Carnival.com they give you great deck plans with images of exactly where everything is that's important on the ship. So knowing where to run around really quickly and be able to find all those ins and outs and those secret hallways to get the pictures you need is good. One thing I always like to study up on too is called epaulets, which are those stripes that you see all the officers wear. Because I know a lot of those scavenger hunts say have a picture with a medical staff or the senior guest services manager, and nobody knows what they look like, because for a lot of people, stripes just look like stripes. So knowing the difference between the colors and how many stripes are on there can help get you in the right direction as well. But yeah, sort of knowing the difference between officers and staff and knowing the ins and outs of the ship is a great advantage point to getting those scavenger hunts.
So, the coin on the ship. Every ship usually has like a lucky coin, right?
That's
so
correct.
What is the purpose of having a lucky coin?
So the coin ceremony is something that dates way, way back with sailing, where as the ship is being constructed, typically as it's getting closer to its maiden voyage, there's a commemorative coin that's created to, I think it sort of serves as a signal of good luck. So every ship has one. For example, our new ship Carnival Horizon, which is coming out next year, just received its coin, I think 10 days ago or so. So it's sort of, as you've ever been on a cruise ship before, sailing is a very, very superstitious sort of activity, where if you go on a cruise ship, you'll never see a deck 13, you'll never see a floor 13, and there's breaking the bottle of champagne during a maiden voyage, if the bottle doesn't break, it's deemed to be cursed. So sailing is very, very superstitious, and the coin ceremony is something that falls into that, I think.
So with this ship, there's actually not a coin on the ship anymore.
Is that
it's
true?
a $2 note. And it's from 1999.
This is something I'm learning today.
So it's on, we were looking for it the other day, and we were like, we can't find the coin, but we found this $2 bill instead. Apparently, when we're asking the guest services, I think it was a hotel director. She was telling us that the ship's coin actually got stolen, and they replaced with a $2 note a long time ago.
Well, that's interesting.
So about that superstition,
Well, I think we're in port right now. I might just take a long walk and come back.
Nice. So I think that's all the time for our interview. I really appreciate you coming down here, Spencer. And guys, if you want to make sure, if you aren't here for the live show, you can also follow us on Facebook and get notifications if you subscribe to get future shows and updates later on. Or you can check it out at cruiseweek.tv for all of the other notes, as well as some higher quality video and a little bit better audio as well. Anyways, guys, we'll see you on the ships.